All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the A to Z Poll podcast on Hoops from the Hills. My name is Zachary Siegel, and I'll be your host for today. We are going to do a preview for the West Virginia Mountaineers versus the Iona Gaels on Wednesday. Uh, First, though, if you like this kind of content, if you like, you know, college sports, go check out the A to Z Poll podcast. And if you like West Virginia sports, like West Virginia basketball, you found yourself right here where you're supposed to be. And if you like all West Virginia sports, including football, basketball, baseball, pretty much anything West Virginia athletic, go check out Kuz's Corner. Uh, Justin Walker's on here a lot too, and let's you can find us on Twitter, uh, everywhere, Twitter, YouTube, all over the place. All right, enough shilling out of the way. First things first. Let's address the elephant in the room. 86-62. It's a pretty bad loss. That's now two times West Virginia has lost the Backyard Brawl. In just a couple months span, and it's disappointing. It is. It really is. But I'm going to say something that I've been saying the entire time, and that is to really temper expectations. Again, and again, like I said, I've said this from the beginning. There's been a lot of people who are like, "Oh, we're gonna make a you could make a madness run. We're gonna immediately be competitive. We're gonna this, that, and the other." No, we're not. I'm sorry, but we're just not going to be immediately competitive. And while this does suck, it does suck to hear. It's the reality that we're living in. But in a different light, this is again one of the more exciting times that we've ever had in West Virginia basketball in probably the past 4 years, right? Since the since COVID year. West Virginia is going to be just fine. Again, this loss sucks. It never really felt like we were in it. Um, and I think a big part of that is because we're playing this game not quite as our full fledged power five, power four team. Well, power five for basketball if you include the Big East, a power five team can be. We're looking at this, from the lens of we're expecting, Bob Huggins level success, and the reality is many people, including Bob Huggins, didn't even have a lot of Bob Huggins success. If by that standard, look, the Twitter response I thought was a little bit harsh. People calling for HCDD's resign. Head coach Darian DeVries. I think I'm going to trademark that. And I don't think that like I said, I don't think we should be calling for the resignation of our first year head coach or the first year in power conference head coach um, after a loss to a team that frankly just out had us. Right? They had bigger players. They had, I guess, in some capacity, better players. Right? They had a more seasoned coach. I think that this was our expectations were higher because of the opponent. I think if you replace this, if you replace Pitt with Boston College, right? This loss, we're not taking this loss nearly as hard, or really any other ACC team, around that caliber. Um, but overall, there were some good things. Some players that really stepped up, specifically Jonathan Powell, Javon Small, and Andre Eduardo, who I think had the most impressive day, who really was dealing with that size advantage the entire game in the paint and still really held his own. Um, he put up 9 points and three rebounds, not to mention two blocks and a steal. Like he didn't have anything stand out, but he was kind of all over the place with the time that we gave him, all 21 minutes. I mean, Javon Small continues to just be the veteran that we're asking him to with double digit points. And then Jonathan Powell had a game I don't think many people were expecting him to, and was also third on the team in rebounds. So overall, I thought that we saw some players shine in ways that we weren't really expecting, but and some that we were expecting, like i.e. Javon Small. But I do think that this is kind of that again, it hurts because of the opponent. But I think if you replace the name of the opponent with any other ACC team, really a lot of Big 12 teams or any other team, in this power conference, and you look at it from that lens, I think that we're not going to be thinking about this loss, you know, a few years down the road, which again is about the threshold for when you should be evaluating a head coach, right? If we're sitting here in 3 years, we have another backyard brawl, and HCDD decides, we're going to have just another blowout game, then yeah, maybe that's our real wake up call for concern. But third game in his tenure, I'm not particularly worried. Maybe that's just me. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But as of now, I'm ready to saddle up and you know get ready to host the Iona Gaels, a team that a pretty staple tournament team in the past. Although they are 1-3 coming into this season, they have not had that great of a season. Um, they've dropped games to Princeton and Delaware, where they're two big ones. As far as their best players, so I'm gonna start taking this in a slightly different method. In the past, I've decided to go at this from more of a kind of just talk about the game and see where it goes. This time, I'm going to kind of break this down in a more, who are the good players, what we have to do to overcome that, what traps could we fall into, how does this stack up later in the season, and what kind of win would this look like or loss would this look like shall either happen. So to start it off, I've highlighted their top three players. Those are going to be uh, DeJour Reeves, Clarence Rupert, and James Patterson, all under head coach Tobin Anderson. DeJour Reeves is a 6 foot junior averaging 15 and a half per game. Clarence Rupert is a 6'8" forward averaging 10 and a half and six points and 6.5 rebounds per game. And James Patterson recorded a double double in their matchup against Princeton, really kind of emerging as one of their better players, despite one of the lower name recognition players on the team, being one of the lower name recognition players on the team. This is going to be, in my opinion, a golden opportunity for the Mountaineers because they play kind of that no center style of play that I've been trying to say that Darian DeVries has been playing because that he's kind of had to play with 6'9" Eduardo Andre as our primary center. They don't have a center, at least not one officially listed on their team, which is definitely good uh, for us or for the Mountaineers because clearly we played a team with some size last week and it didn't work out. And even when we played Robert Morris, we got out rebounded pretty aggressively. So this is going to be a game where we're really, really going to be able to hone our skills and hopefully take advantage of an opponent who's seeming to be struggling in their right, as really, really kind of take our place as that Power Five team playing a group team or a lower kind of tier team. Um, like I said, it's a great matchup, and even from a personnel standpoint, right? Uh, DeJour Reeves is, a perfect matchup for Javon Small. Javon Small is a little taller than him, and DeJour Reeves, is kind of the classic scorer. This will be a good test for Javon, and hopefully, again, with everything, hopefully this is a good confidence booster. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I do think that if there are times to have expectations, it's going to a game like Iona. Next, you can kind of put our big forward who's been all over the boards all year, which is Amani Hansberry, reporting he recorded 12 boards at one point in the season. And we're going to put him on Clarence Rupert. Their big 6'8", forward kind of pseudo center style player. Amani Hansberry is that long, athletic 6'8" forward type that can really, I think can really feast on in a situation where he is just the better athlete. And then finally, like the rest can just clean up players like James Patterson. You can put players like Toby Okani, Eduardo Andre, Sensier Harris, and Jonathan Powell, people who have really, really stepped up recently on James Patterson and the rest. I think that Tobin Anderson squad is gonna have a really, really big, sorry, difficult time handling all the moving pieces. And I think one thing that's been really good about this West Virginia squad, despite their struggles in the last game, is, and even including their struggles in the last game with the emergence of Jonathan Powell going, shooting 50% uh, going 40% from the three free throw or from the 3-point line. I think that um, we're seeing players who we're seeing a team kind of like I predicted in the beginning that has an 8, 9, potentially even 10 man deep rotation. Where originally, there's a lot of teams that their bag just isn't that deep, and that's kind of where West Virginia is going to win games down the stretch, is where we have more capable players than everyone else, and that we haven't really had one player, especially in tougher situations, emerge as that stud player, that stud athlete that's going to put the team on their back. We've had that, like, we've had multiple different players come through and prove to be that kind of put themselves on their back kind of player. I think that we have a lot of talent on this team, and I still think there's a huge portion of this that is just gelling, right? I don't think you can make a team close without, you know, playing together, right? When you're applying for a job and they say you want job experience, nothing replaces that. You can't do something with, you can't have experience before you have experience. And I think what this team is we're going to see a remarkable jump from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. My hope is that it's just not too late to turn this year into something, if that makes sense. I think that right now, like I said, this team has the talent to compete with a lot of teams. And I think, Darian DeVries is a very good head coach and did some really good things at Drake. I just think there's going to be a learning curve for literally everyone involved. You have players like Amani Hansberry and Sincere Harris who just haven't, you know, seen much floor time. You have Javon Small playing on a new team. This is his second time doing this, but if anything, that just makes him, our most seasoned player. We have players of all different ages, playing with each other. We have some players at the end of their career, some players starting to make a career, some that we're looking at as, part of our future, some that we're looking at as, they're a this year kind of player and they're going to help us get players for the future. I think that West Virginia is in a very, very good spot. And I think that right now, this is a great game to that West Virginia matches up very well with to, give ourselves a little bit of confidence. Now, there has been one player from West Virginia that I have been neglecting to talk about so far, and you might have picked up on that, but that is Tucker DeVries. He had a very subpar game last week, and he was shut down. I'm going to be very blunt about this. Tucker was shut down. I still think Tucker's a really good player, but this is his first year in this level of competition. I would have been, you know, amiss to not have thought of this earlier, and I did, and I've said this before. You can look back. I've said this before that I think Tucker and Darren and everybody coming up are going to have growing pains, and I think these are part of the growing pains. And look, we threw him to the Sharks when he was treading water. I don't think that he's necessarily been struggling that much this year, but this game obviously proved that there's a lot to work on, and I don't think that it's a bad thing to get punched in the mouth, especially this early in the season. I think there's a lot that can be gained and should be gained from this kind of beating. This is going to be something that fuels this team for a while. Even as fans, if we should think of it as more of a short memory thing for the overall tenure and idea of head coach DD, but I do think that this is going to be, and it's weird to say, this is going to be all in all a good thing for West Virginia's basketball team, at least this year. I haven't looked to see if we play Pitt next year, but if we do, I would expect it to be a much different game because I would expect head coach Darren DeVries to see these kind of things happening and be like, okay, so this style of play, while it was able to work in a lower level in an FBS, or not FBS, I'm sorry, in a group of five stage, in a group of five setting, I don't think that it's going to work in this way. We need big men, we need centers, we need the person who's able to shut down the middle and prevent scoring, and we're also going to need some more shooters. And with with the potential departure of Tucker, the departure of Javon, the departure of Andre, we're gonna have West Virginia is gonna have a lot of different players who next year too, and it's going to probably take, like I said, a couple years for Darian DeVries to really for us to really see what he is capable of as a head coach. It's not like he came in, a great example I think of is Kevin Willard with his first year coaching Maryland 2 years ago, where he took them to a tournament, but he had all of Friedgen's guys. He he had, Cowan and Juju Reese and a lot of players who, were still there, a lot of veteran players who had played with each other. He just had to keep them on track. And frankly, I feel like that team got a little lucky. They, did not lose at home and were dropping a lot of threes. This is just not the case here. Uh, there was one uh, our one resident Israeli player who is redshirting this year, who's the only even Bob Huggins relic still, and he was just recruited by him. I don't even think he was there when Bob Huggins was there. Kind of got off track, but back to Tucker. All of what I've said so far is not going to mean a whole lot if Tucker can't lead this team. I get it. Coach's son put, what are we doing here? He's getting the most minutes. He clearly just did not have a productive game. I don't think it's even that because, Tucker was very, very good at Drake last year. I think I said he was the only player to average 24, 12, 6, 3, 1, and 1.5 uh, in all of D1 college basketball. It wasn't like there was some other players at like, at Oakland playing or Detroit Mercy doing crazy stuff. He was at Drake and he was playing better basketball than a lot of people. And I think that's in him, and I think that's in him to perform like that, at least to a certain degree in this level, in this new, stage of basketball, of college basketball that he's playing in. But if you can't go 2 for 10 shooting 6 points, you know, 1 for 2 on three free throws, 1 for 4, I think, on 3 points. You have to be better. You got to shoot yourself out of slumps. You got to know how to lead this team because right now he is the leader. He's the lifeline to the head coach. He's the avatar between the real life players and the head coach Darren DeVries spirit world. He's got to be everything and more that you need in order for this team to win. I think the rest of the team can play, as good as they want. I don't think this team's going to do what it wants to do if Tucker isn't playing on his game. Now, this is a game again with Iona, and I don't want to sound ahead of myself. I don't want to sound a fool of myself, but this is definitely a game in Iona that I think that just say Tucker wasn't on again, the rest of the team's talent can probably figure it out. But Tucker is someone who's on the floor a lot, and especially once we get into Big 12 play, and especially once we play some of these other teams in these tournaments, like next week we got a big tournament. I think this is going to be, one of these situations where you just have to. He's just going to have to be good in order for us to be good, and the success of the West Virginia basketball program is going to be heavily reliant on Tucker DeVries. All right. Last thing I'm going to end us with is one more gentle yet firm reminder to temper expectations, but tempering expectations doesn't mean not rooting for your team. It doesn't mean not caring about your team. It doesn't mean not being hopeful for your team. It means being realistic and not letting your emotions get the best of you in a situation when they shouldn't. And right now, the message I'm gonna leave everyone with is to temper your expectations, but still stay hungry, still stay excited, still cheer on your Mountaineers fans, win or lose, and honestly, let's go Mountaineers. We got a big game on Wednesday, like I said, against Iona, and if I think that this is going to be a great opportunity to get us right back on track and to get everybody right back excited for Mountaineer hoops and some big West Virginia basketball. All right, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Once again, you can find us on Twitter, X. It's the same thing. Facebook. You can find us all over the place. This is the A to Z Poll podcast on Hoops from the Hills. My name is Zachary Siegel, and let's go Mountaineers.